Somewhere around 1716, on a beach in the Bahamas, 1,000 pirates held an election. They were not choosing a king, and they were not choosing a governor. They were creating something the world had never seen before, a republic of outlaws. They called themselves the Flying Gang. Benjamin Hornigold was their first captain. Henry Jennings ran a rival crew. But here's the thing that terrifies governments even now. They had rules. We think of pirates as chaos, drunks with cutlasses, no laws, no order, no tomorrow. But the truth is stranger and more dangerous to the powers of the time than that. Every pirate ship that sailed out of Nassau carried a written code, articles the crew voted on, signed, and swore to uphold. They had different names, the Chase, the Jamaica Discipline, and the Custom of the Coast, but they all did the same thing. They created order where there was supposed to be none, and they created something else, something the empires of Europe noticed and feared. Take Bartholomew Roberts, Black Bart, one of the most successful pirates who ever lived. In 1720, his crew drew up 11 articles, rules they all agreed to follow. They weren't suggestions. Every man shall have an equal vote in affairs of moment. Every man shall be called fairly in turn for plunder. No man shall game for money with dice or cards. The lights and candles to be put out at 8 at night, and the one that told you everything about how serious they were, compensation for injury, 600 pieces of 8 for a right arm, 500 for a left, 400 for a leg, and 100 for an eye. In Nassau, the codes created a delicate balance. Hornigold was the elder statesman, careful, strategic, willing to let Spanish ships pass if the risk was too high. Jennings was younger, hungrier, fresh off raiding a Spanish salvage camp for 87,000 pounds in gold. Their crews clashed, sometimes violently, but they also knew. Alone, they were hunted. Together, they were something new, a fleet of outlaws, bound not by blood or nation, but by paper. The Spanish wrote to Madrid, "The pirates of Nassau have formed a republic. They have captains, admirals, and a fleet of 20 ships. They vote on everything. They answer to no king." The English heard the same reports, and they understood something the Spanish didn't. The pirates weren't dangerous because they were lawless. They were dangerous because they'd made their own laws, and those laws worked better than anything the empires could offer their own men. And about democracy, it's not just a fun fact. It's the reason governments wanted them dead, because if 1,000 pirates could govern themselves better than kings. What did that say about kings? Tonight, we're going to read those codes, word for word. We're going to see how they worked and how they tore themselves apart. We're going to meet the men who wrote them, the men who broke them, and the ones who paid the price. And we're going to ask the question no one in power wanted asked: if pirates could build a republic, why couldn't anyone else? Before any pirate ship sailed, before any treasure was taken, the crew gathered, and they wrote the rules. Articles of agreement, the pirate code. Every man had to sign. Every man swore to uphold them. And once signed, those rules were posted for all to see, often nailed to the door of the captain's cabin. We have 3 complete sets of these codes that survive today. Most come from Captain Charles Johnson's A General History of the Pirates, published in 1724. Others from a man named Alexander Exquemelin, who sailed with the buccaneers as a ship's doctor. Pirates burned their codes before capture. They didn't want them used as evidence, so the ones we have are rare, and they tell us exactly how these men governed themselves. Let's start with Bartholomew Roberts, Black Bart, the most successful pirate of the Golden Age. He captured more than 400 ships between 1719 and 1722. Article 1. Every man has a vote in affairs of moment, has equal title to the fresh provisions or strong liquors at any time seized. Equal vote, equal share of food and drink. This wasn't charity, it was survival. A crew that trusted each other fought together. A crew that didn't died together. Article 2. Plunder was divided fairly, and if any man defrauded the company, or stole more than his share, marooning would be the punishment. Marooning. Left on a deserted shore with 1 bottle of powder, one bottle of water, a small firearm, and one shot. Enough to survive, or enough to end it. Either way, no rescue was coming. Article 4. The lights and candles to be put out at 8 o'clock at night. If any of the crew, after that hour, still remained inclined for drinking, they were to do it on the open deck. Why? Simple. Fire. These were wooden ships. Gunpowder was stored below. One spark in the wrong place and the whole thing goes up. The code wasn't just about order, it was about staying alive. Article 9. Injury compensation. Lose a right arm in battle, you get 600 pieces of 8. Lose a left arm, it's 500. Lose a leg, it's 400. Lose an eye, it's 100. This was their version of health insurance. A promise that if you gave your body for the crew would carry you after. Article 8. No striking one another on board. Every man's quarrels to be ended on shore with sword and pistol. The quartermaster would accompany them. He ensured fairness. There would be no other interference. The code even regulated how to hate each other. In Nassau, these codes created something the world had never seen. Benjamin Hornigold and Henry Jennings. Rival captains, rival crews. They ruled different parts of the Republic, but they answered to the same principles. The governor of Bermuda wrote to London in 1716, panicked, over 1,000 pirates now in Nassau. They outnumbered the honest inhabitants 10 to 1. But here's what he didn't understand. The pirates weren't a mob. They were a confederacy, bound not by blood or nation, but by paper. Captain John Phillips, commander of the Revenge, wrote his own code in 1724. Article 3. If any man shall steal anything in the company, to the value of a piece of 8, he shall be marooned or shot. Article 5. That man that shall strike another whilst these articles are in force, shall receive Moses's law, 40 stripes lacking 1, on the bare back. Article 6. That man that shall snap his arms or smoke tobacco in the hold without a cap to his pipe, or carry a candle lighted without a lantern, shall suffer the same punishment. Gunpowder and fire. The same rules, ship after ship, because the same dangers faced them all. These codes did something radical. They distributed power. The captain got a double share, but only as long as the crew said so. Any man could challenge him. Any man could vote him out. In November 1716, Hornigold's own crew voted him out. Too cautious, unwilling to attack English ships, they replaced him with a man named Sam Bellamy, who took 53 ships in a single year. Hornigold was set adrift with those who stayed loyal. The code allowed that. And when Woodes Rogers later arrived with the king's pardon, Hornigold accepted and turned pirate hunter. The code could make you a captain, and it could unmake you just as fast. Governments called them outlaws, said they had no order, no law, no civilization. But the outlaws had something the governments didn't: a vote, a share, a say in the very rules they lived by. So what happens when 1,000 men with no country, no king, and no laws to answer to, except the ones they write themselves, and decide to build something together? They created a republic of pirates. And for a few years, it worked better than anyone expected. We saw a few of the codes they lived by, the rules that kept order on pirate ships. But the codes didn't just govern individual crews, they governed the whole republic. Nassau wasn't a single ship, it was a fleet. And that meant the men running it had to figure out something harder than writing rules. They had to make peace with each other. Hornigold was an elder statesman, a privateer who'd turned pirate when the war ended. Cautious, strategic. He refused to attack English ships, his old loyalties died hard. Jennings was the opposite, hungry, ambitious, fresh off raiding a Spanish salvage camp for 87,000 pounds in gold. He'd attack anyone. They clashed constantly. Their crews nearly came to blows more than once. But they also knew something important. Alone, they were hunted. Together, they were a navy. The Flying Gang, they called themselves. And by 1716, they commanded a fleet that could take on the Royal Navy. Over 1,000 pirates spread across dozens of ships bound by nothing but paper and a shared hatred of being told what to do. And the system worked because every man knew the rules applied to everyone. Captain got a double share, but only as long as the crew said so. The quartermaster kept order, but could be voted out just as fast. But the Republic had a weakness. The same democracy that made it strong also made it unstable. Hornigold's own crew voted him out. Too cautious, unwilling to attack English ships. They replaced him with a man named Sam Bellamy, who took 53 ships in a single year. Bellamy was everything Hornigold wasn't. Young, bold, charismatic. He believed pirates were the true rebels, that they'd built something better than the empires that hunted them. When Bellamy captured a ship, he sometimes let the captain go with a speech. The most famous one survives. "I am a free prince. I have as much authority to make war on the whole world as he who has 100 sail of ships at sea and an army of 100,000 men in the field." That was the idea anyway. It was that pirates had built something legitimate, something worth defending. As for Hornigold, he was set adrift, literally. The code allowed that. And when word reached him that the king had offered a pardon, he made a new choice. In 1718, a former privateer named Woodes Rogers arrived in Nassau with the king's pardon. Surrender and go free. Refuse and be hunted. Hornigold accepted. And then Rogers did something shrewd. He commissioned Hornigold to hunt down his former comrades. The man who helped build the Republic became the man who tore it apart. On the 12th of December 1718, 9 pirates Hornigold captured were hanged in Nassau. The Republic was over, but the idea that 1,000 outlaws could govern themselves better than kings didn't die. It just went underground. Thomas Jefferson owned 2 books that described the pirate republic in detail: Exquemelin's Buccaneers of America and Captain Charles Johnson's A General History of the Pirates. In those books, Jefferson would have read about men who elected their leaders, wrote their laws, and shared their wealth equally. Men who checked power with power, captains balanced by quartermasters, crews who could vote anyone out. Half a century later, when Jefferson and Madison sat down to design a new kind of government, they wrestled with the same problem pirates had solved: how to give a leader power without letting them abuse it. Madison wrote in Federalist 51, "You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place oblige it to control itself." Pirates had figured that out 80 years earlier, on ships smaller than the room Madison wrote in. So here's the question no one in power wanted asked. Not then, and not now. If 1,000 pirates, murderers, thieves, outcasts, could build a democracy that worked, what excuse did everyone else have? The Republic lasted 12 years. The codes that held it together? They're still sitting in archives. Still readable. Still giving the same advice. Every man has a vote in affairs of moment. The captain and quartermaster to receive 2 shares. If any man lose a limb, 800 pieces of 8. They wrote those words on ships, in candlelight, surrounded by desperate men who'd kill them or rob them just for a meal and a drink. And somehow, they kept it. Governments called them outlaws, said they had no order, no law, no civilization. But the outlaws had something the governments didn't: a vote, a share, a say. And for 12 years, off a beach in the Bahamas, they proved it could work. The Republic is gone, the men are dust, but the codes survive, and the statement they made, the one that terrified every king who heard about it, still hangs in the air. I am a free prince. If you want more stories of the men who ruled the seas and the Republic they built, please like, subscribe, and tap the bell. This has been For What It's Worth.